This is a BMW Seat out of e39 2005 series BMW. I believe e34 has the same system, and the problem here is that you cannot adjust the seat properly. It gets that twist. The back gets twisted, and actually the seat itself gets twisted. And the problem here is that this cable's the outer layer swells up, and the cable is not reaching the motor. So you have to remove the seat first. You use T45 Torx. You move the seat backwards as much as you can and take the front bolts out. Then the same way you move the seat forward and take the rear bolts out. Then you need to use the lift the seat up and use this flat head screwdriver to remove the clip. You'll see it's on a little has a thin cable on it. It has to be disconnected before you take the seat out. And the last thing you need to do is to disconnect the seat belt, also T45, or I had to use channel lock pliers because I did not have enough room to get this bit in, and that's because the cable was broken and I could not lift the seat up to get to that seat belt bolt, so I used these pliers to unscrew the seat belt. So once the seat is removed, you need to find the motors. There are two motors here that control the seat, and four cables, two for the left side and two for the right side. So the first thing to do is to disconnect this plate here that holds the cables in place. The cables are located in those holes, and the plate retains them in there. You can bend the plate a little bit to gain access to the bolts, and I used this 8mm wrench and a small magnet. So unscrew the bolts, and then before you remove them completely, put the magnet underneath so it doesn't fall into the seat and you'll catch the falling bolt. There's also a screw on the front that you need to remove, but there's one screw that is not accessible, so you have to bend this plate away from the motor a little bit, and then you can pull the cable out. So as you can see, when the cable is pulled out, there's a little bit of the internal cable sticks out, and you need to have about ½ an inch of this cable sticking out. But anyway, what you need to do first is to push this in all the way. As you can see, it's all in, and there's no cable sticks out to turn the motor and to control the seat. So you need to have about ½ an inch of this internal cable to stick out. So this is how you know how much you need to cut of the outer sheath. So about ½ an inch. So the next thing is to remove this retainer. To do that, you need to heat this up like that. And once it's hot, it will slide out. Okay, so this is done. Comes out. Next thing to do is to cut ½ an inch of this outer layer. So you can use a box knife, box cutter, like this, and cut ½ an inch of this outer sheath. And then you take the retainer, and you need to clean this inside, the inside, all that stuff out that is inside that retainer. So this one's already cut, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back on. But in order to do that, I'm going to heat this up again and slide it on the cable. So I need to have about ½ an inch stick out from the retainer. I'm gonna reheat this a little bit more. So now we have about half an inch or so. Let it cool down, and then there is a piece that comes out from the retainer. It's a felt looking piece. You just take a small screwdriver and push it out like that. Okay, and then you install it back into the retainer, and then now you can insert it back into the motor. And reattach the plate. Okay, it's best to do both sides, even though the one side is working properly, but all these cables shrink like that, or expand, whatever you can call it, and stop working. So once your seat is out, it's best to do both sides, left and right. The other side is a little bit more difficult to gain access to because of the bolts are kind of hidden underneath, but it's also possible. The one thing to remember is, before you remove this, before you disconnect the seat from the electrical wire, you need to position the seat so it's all completely straight. Otherwise you're gonna end up with a crooked seat. So make sure both sides are absolutely symmetrical before you disconnect the electrical cable, and that's how you need to connect those new fixed cables to the motors, so both sides will be controlled equally.